Shabbat Shalom. A friend of mine recently decided to run a marathon. He told me he was committed to running the full 26.2 miles, and when I asked him how he was going to do it, he said simply, "I will train and prepare and add a little more to my regimen each day until I am ready." He said he was visualizing himself making it to the finish line. And it reminded me of something that my singing teacher used to say to me back in the days when I was studying to become a cantor. When I would have a piece of music that would suddenly leap up to a very high note, like a high C, she would tell me, if you can hear it in your mind, you can sing it. In other words, you need to believe in yourself. And this starts with optimism. This starts with hope. We may not be aware of it, but we create narratives that shape our experiences. With the stories we tell, we reframe the past. We tell a tale that may be pessimistic or hopeful, often depending on the angle we choose. We may not be aware of it, but as we create these narratives, we also create expectations of the future. Hope allows us to change our story from one of bleak prospects to one filled with possibility. There is a fascinating passage in Malcolm Gladwell's book, The Tipping Point, where he discusses a toddler's description of what her experience of a Friday was like. Interestingly, the young child does not talk about a specific Friday, but rather gives a rich narrative of what an ideal Friday would be like. She says, "First, me and Daddy and Mommy eat breakfast like we usually do, and then we're going to play. And then soon as Daddy comes, Carl's going to come over. And then we're going to play a little while. And then Carl and Emily are both going down the car with somebody, and we're going to ride to the nursery school. And then when we get there, we're all going to get out of the car, go into the nursery school, and Daddy's going to give us kisses. Then go. And then we will say bye-bye, and then he's going to work, and we're going to play at the nursery school. Won't that be funny?" Gladwell remarks, she is describing her Friday routine, but it's not a particular Friday. It's what she considers to be an ideal Friday, a hypothetical Friday, in which everything that she wants to happen, happens. What is interesting is that her focus is one of idealism, a kind of meta-positive Friday experience that connects one to the other and goes on. And it gives her a sense of happiness, well-being. By focusing on positive experiences, she imagines a hopeful future. We are in a time of great stress. Every news cycle brings more terrible stories. Just this week, we are facing the reality that 22 million Americans could possibly lose their health insurance. Just imagine that. 22 million people, many of whom are elderly, children, babies, chronically sick, pregnant, suffer from mental illness, and the list goes on. And this is just one news story of the past week. I am not even talking about the travel ban. It is hard not to feel downtrodden and overwhelmed as morally and ethically bound people who hold life sacred, who hold up the values of equality, helping the needy, protecting the stranger, and advocating for the vulnerable. These stories are unconscionable. They seem almost impossible to be true, and sometimes it can be very hard to see our way forward. But this is when we most need to practice hope. When Hagar is in the desert and she cries out to God that she is going to die, she is caught up in the moment of anguish and doesn't notice the well of water beside her until an angel tells her to open her eyes, and look, it had been there all along. There is a Jewish folktale about a farmer who has no way to lift his donkey that has fallen into a well. The neighbors gather to help the trapped animal, and one man suggests that they throw dirt into the well. As each shovelful of dirt comes down, the donkey brays in terror, certain that he is about to be buried alive. But then he shakes off the dirt. Bit by bit, the dirt builds up beneath him until he can climb out of the well by himself. It's not that the grave, immense problems don't exist. They do. It's not that we aren't seeing immoral acts on a grand scale. We are. It's just that we need to find any and every way we can counter this, to raise ourselves and others up and to help. And we can only do this from a sense of empowerment. We can only do this with a sense of hope. Judaism urges that we don't allow ourselves to become shrouded in despair, but to always open ourselves to the possibility of something better to come. If any group of people have something to say about finding hope in dark times, it's the Jewish people. Just think about our history and its narrative of survival and hope. We so identify with this that our Israeli national anthem is named Hatikva, which means the hope. As long as the Jewish spirit yearns deep in the heart, our hope is not yet lost, the hope of 2 millennia. Our people have been persecuted over thousands of years and have needed to find ways to survive. This goes all the way to our history as slaves in Egypt. We were brought low in misery and deprivation, but this very story of slavery and the exodus to freedom is central to our core. We relive it each year at our Seder tables, in our Torah portions, and in fact, in most of our prayer services, as we will tonight when we remind ourselves of the words that Moses and Miriam and all of the Israelites sang on the shores of freedom, Mi Chamocha. Why do we tell this story of our redemption from Egypt again and again? By repeating this story, we relive the feeling of hope, and we in fact exercise hope. We practice it. Many of our prayers are about exercising hope. At the end of each service, we chant the words from Zechariah. On that day, Adonai will be one, and God's name will be one. And every time we mention this idea of messianic times, we are participating in a narrative about better times to come. We are taking part in an idea that our actions are meaningful. And when we bring goodness into the world through our deeds, we help to bring ourselves closer to a more hopeful time. And it's not just in our prayers that we exercise hope. The central Jewish practice of doing mitzvot is a commitment to hope. You do the right thing, knowing that it has the possibility of making positive change. Jewish mystics believe that a mitzvah emanates goodness. By doing good things, we actually make the world a kinder place. We counter despair by making things better one small act at a time. You may be feeling despondent about the news, but if you volunteer at the men's shelter and serve a meal to someone you never met, you're going to feel more hopeful. At the same time, you are bringing more hope to others. If you join any of our task forces, for example, the Immigration and Refugees Task Force, and help to settle in a refugee family to a new home, you are going to feel more hopeful at the same time as bringing more hope to others. If you visit with those who are ill or shut in through physical immobility, you are going to feel more hopeful at the same time as bringing more hope to others. It is a way of confronting the injustice and refusing to stay silent. As Jonathan Sachs said, hope is not costless in the way that optimism is. It carries with it a considerable price. Those who hope refuse to be comforted, while the hoped-for outcome is not yet achieved. Given their history of suffering, Jews were rarely optimists, but they never gave up hope. That is why when the prophets saw evil in the world, they refused to be comforted. The needs around us are great. The ways to help are limitless. And in helping, We do more than address the problems of the now. We bring hope for a better future. As Eugene Borowitz said, because we're still in covenant with God, we always have hope. In the Torah, and later expanded in the Mishnah and the Talmud, we learn how Jews are obligated to feed each other. We know that if we are really in trouble, others are obligated to help us, and likewise, we are obligated to help them. This is the definition of Jewish community. We have each other's backs. There is an innate sense of hope that we can kind of knowing that wherever we are, whenever possible, we have help and security in our community. So the bottom line, read the news. Don't turn away. Keep on top of what is going on so that we can help to counter, so that we can resist, so that we can show humanity through our concrete actions of kindness, and practice hope, exercise it through prayers, through actions of goodness, and through the narratives we tell that shape our lives. And let us share this hope through our engagement in actions of social justice and repair. Shabbat Shalom.